Today I want to show you how I made this under workbench cabinet. Now, the funny thing about this is I never intended it to be this fancy with all these embellishments and details. I really started with something that was utilitarian and practical, just made with solid wood so it would be nice and it would last a long time. But ultimately, with influence of friends of mine online, people pushing me to do more with it, it evolved into this crazy project that I never expected it to be. So you might see some continuity issues in a sense where normally I would actually put a lot of attention into my grain direction on a piece like this, but I really didn't. I just kind of took a walnut board and started chopping out my parts because it didn't matter when I started. Then at the end, you're left with this thing that's this weird dichotomy of practicality, utilitarian stuff, along with embellishment and extra details that you might normally add into a piece of furniture that you want to be a showpiece in your home. All right, so it's got plenty of room for storage, lots of nice drawers, inlay drawer pulls. You'll see in a future video, I'll show you some of the details on tool holders like this, but if you are married to a set of chisels, this is a nice little thing that you can do. Lots of fun techniques in this project. This is a Wood Whisperer Guild project, so if you want the full set of plans and all the videos, you can go to woodwhispererguild.com. But this is a pretty good introduction to see how I made it, so let's take a look. The case is made from 4/4 walnut. Most of the case parts will require a glue up to get the width that I need. Once the glue is dry, I scrape away the excess and then sand the panels to 180. The panels are then cut to length and width. The main joinery will be box joints, so I'll whip up a quick box joint jig on the miter sled. Check out my knife case video if you want to see more detail on how to construct a jig like this. Big panels can be tricky, so make sure you use a tall fence and a clamp if you need it. To connect the partitions, I'll be using sliding dovetails. They're more work than simple dados, but they're also much stronger and they look a lot better too. The male part of the joint is cut at the router table. This is one of those times where it's really nice to have an Incra setup because it allows you to sneak up on the perfect fit. The back panel will sit in a simple groove that gets cut all the way around the perimeter. And the back panel itself will be made from 2 boards with a rabbet cut all the way around. The panel is slightly narrower than the opening to allow for wood movement. To avoid losing my mind, we'll glue one joint at a time. And the calls are just practice runs from the box joint setup. You could glue the whole thing together at once, but you better use a slow setting glue that doesn't contain water, such as polyurethane glue or epoxy. Otherwise, you'll never get all of those joints to seat correctly. Even though I'm doing one joint at a time, I'm still going to use Titebond Extend for additional working time. The sliding dovetails are also best glued with a slow set non-water-based glue. It'd be great if every joint was 100% perfect, but in my shop, that's just not going to happen. So I'll use a little bit of filler here and there to create the illusion of perfection. Now for the drawers. We'll have walnut fronts and poplar sides and backs. I use shims to help me get the fronts cut to the exact dimension. No tape measures needed here. The sides will connect to the front and back with sliding dovetails. Now this isn't really a common way to make drawers, but I think it's a nice change of pace. Now for the bottom panel grooves. The bottom panels will be made from 1/4-inch ply. And now things start to get pretty fun. I need to route a recess for the drawer pulls that I want to use. They're not really intended to be totally flush mounted, but I think they'll look much better this way and nothing will ever get caught on them, so we do the work. To make the drawers pop, I'll do a little string inlay using thin strips of maple. The groove is cut with a 1/16-inch straight bit and the stringing is cut to fit. While this work is kind of tedious, it's also very meditative and soothing. like a warm bubble bath or a walk on the beach. Not really. The corners are carefully mitered using a chisel, and the pieces are inserted with glue. Once the glue is dry, the stringing is flushed to the surface. Snazzy. To provide clearance for the drawer slides, I'll need to notch the drawer backs. To glue up the drawers, I'll use polyurethane glue. The advantage of using poly glue here is that it not only gives me lots of working time, it also doesn't add any water to the joint, which would swell the wood and make it difficult to assemble. The bottom panel is then inserted and the drawer is squared up. Once dry, we can drive the screws through the bottom panel into the back. Now for the hardware. I'm using black full extension slides. There are lots of other slide options out there, so if you're wondering why I went with these, remember that this project started as a simple utilitarian piece. By the time I realized I was getting way more involved, I've already purchased my hardware and just needed to move forward. I like to use spacers to install my slides. It makes it pretty dummy-proof, especially if the spacers are cut to the correct size. A quick test fit looks pretty good. So let's make a door. The door will be a simple, mitered frame and panel. We'll have to route for yet another pull here. To dress up the door, my buddy Brian Benham suggested a fairly ornate pattern that travels around the hardware. It's a lot more work, but it'll look pretty good. To reinforce the miters, we'll cut some keys. The keys themselves will be made from maple. The hinges are simple mortised butt hinges. I cut the mortise with a router and then clean it up with a chisel. The mortise locations are transferred to the case, and the mortise process is repeated. As a doorstop, I'll make a small magnetic block using rare earth magnets. A bank of drawers nearly always needs some finesse work to make sure that the gaps are all perfectly even. I'll use a hand plane for that work, and then add some nice subtle chamfers to the edges. The case also gets some subtle edge treatment, including a large chamfer on the outside. The finish is a hard wax oil. More than any other wood, I think walnut's transformation with finish is absolutely amazing. And now for the final hardware installation. The box is then carefully placed onto the bench rails and secured in place. It's more than it needs to be, less than it could be, but probably more than I deserve. But I'll tell you, I'm going to love going into the shop every day and seeing this under my bench. Remember, woodwhispererguild.com if you want to see the full series and get your hands on those plans. Thanks for watching.